Hi, my name is Ransom 4, and this presentation is going to be about building positive relationship, building trusting relationship between students in a classroom. And so when we are talking about the word relationship here, we are talking about a connection that links two things. And so relationship is just a connection between the student and the teacher. How do we foster such relationship in a classroom? How do we build positive relationship in a classroom? Positive relationship here in itself does not imply learning, but it does create a conducive atmosphere that will promote or facilitate learning. And so when we build positive relationship in a classroom, it motivates students, right? Scientifically, we know that when students feel motivated, usually it releases a hormone in the brain that gives a good feeling. So students, when you praise them for something good, they feel motivated and they will want to do that thing again, right? And so positive relationship also creates a safe environment. When students uh, feel safe, social activities like talking, discussing with students create such safe environment, and that will facilitate learning. Now, how do we build those relationships? We how do we how do we make students trust us and want to build those relationships? Some of those few factors that we need to take into consideration when we want to build a rapport with students are things like respect. We need to make sure students feel respected. We need to make sure that they learn how to respect other people in turn. Because without respect, when both parties don't feel respected, there's nothing concrete that can actually take place. And so both parties, like the teacher and the students, they need to feel approachable. Even though in this context, it's usually the teacher that needs to stretch the hand for students to understand that they are approachable and they can easily talk to them, right? There needs to be open communication. The teacher needs to be such that he's consistent in the way he does things and the way he communicates with the student. He's caring and always has a positive attitude. That is very, very important. And so we need to know students' need and their interests. When we know what they care about, we can usually easily engage them into conversations. Like in the context of a classroom, one way we can actually find out what students care about can be to write them an open letter. We write them a letter, let's say at the beginning of a unit, and then we explain to them what they are going to be learning or what they are expected to learn in that unit and what they should be able to do. And then we expect them to return a letter whereby they should share what they already know about that specific topic and what are their interests, what are their weaknesses, what are their strengths, what are their misconception about the topic. Another way we can also administer student survey with so many open-ended questions. This open-ended question will also permit us to collect feedback and we'll be able to assess that to see what the students actually like, what they don't, what they already know about the topic and so on. And so when we are building this positive relationship, usually it's very important that we learn how to recognize that we can have different viewpoints from those of the students. And the students themselves, they can have different viewpoints. How do we address that? I'll be focusing here or maybe on reinforcement and maybe refocusing a discussion. When students say things that we want to see in a classroom or we want to promote in a classroom, it's very important that we reinforce those behavior. We praise them for others to see that that is something good and other students will want to emulate that. But if at the same time students say things that we don't want to hear or we don't want to promote that in a classroom, what we can usually do is that we can sometimes acknowledge what they're saying briefly and then we move on to maybe modeling what we want to hear or what we want to promote. And sometimes students' discussions are usually out of context. We can also redirect or readjust their discussions to fit the context or the content that we are discussing in a classroom. Now, as Christians, sometimes we we don't we don't always see in the same direction, right? We can be, for example, in a Christian school, but not everyone in there is a Christian. So we can use Christian viewpoint to support diversity, to support other people's culture. And one of them is that we should be acceptant of other people's religion. We should be able to discuss that also with the students. We organize avenues whereby students can discuss different religions, because as Christians, we one of our pillars, one of them is that we need to be tolerant, we need to be loving, we need to show respect for one another. And so, if we show respect for one another by discussing and showing some love to other people, accepting their religion, then we will be able to build those bridges as Christians and making them understand that we have one thing in common, which is love and tolerance and respect, irrespective of the religion that you follow. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your kind attention.